The unexpected call. It was already late when the phone rang. I was sitting at my desk, sipping the last bit of coffee from my mug, preparing to call it a night. The office was quiet, with only the soft hum of the air conditioning keeping me company. Outside, the streets of the city shimmered under the glow of streetlights, and I was already imagining the comfort of my bed when the phone's sudden ring broke the silence. I glanced at the screen. The name Mr. Stanton flashed on the display. My boss. "Hello?" I answered, a bit surprised. It was almost 9:30 p.m., and we usually only communicated during office hours unless something urgent came up. "Are you still at the office?" His voice was calm, but with a note of urgency. "Yes," I replied, glancing at the clock on my computer. "I'm just wrapping up some things. What's going on?" "I need you to write a story," Mr. Stanton said, his words quick and precise. 950 words, to be exact. "A story?" I was taken aback. "At this hour?" "I know it's late, but it's important. I need it by midnight, and I'll explain everything later. Just make sure it's 950 words. Nothing more, nothing less. Understand?" I didn't know what to say. A story? At this hour? But it was my boss, and I wasn't about to argue. "Okay," I said, rubbing my forehead. "I'll get on it right away." "Great. I'll be waiting for your email. And remember, 950 words. Nothing more." The line clicked as the call ended. I stared at my phone for a moment, processing the conversation. I had no idea what kind of story he was asking for or why it was so urgent. But my job required flexibility, and if he needed something, I had to deliver. I pulled up a blank document on my computer screen, the cursor blinking at me as though mocking my confusion. What kind of story did he want? Was it for a report, a presentation, or something creative? The possibilities seemed endless. After a few minutes of staring blankly at the screen, I decided to just go with the flow. I would write something, anything, and hope it aligned with what he had in mind. But the strange thing was, I felt a strange pressure mounting in my chest. What if this was some kind of test? What if the story was meant to be something more than just a task? Something symbolic? I took a deep breath and began typing. The story. The midnight call. It was late. Far too late for anyone to be calling. In fact, most people were already asleep, tucked away in their beds, dreaming their dreams. But not him. Not James. James had received the call an hour ago. A strange, unfamiliar number had flashed across his phone's screen. Hesitant but curious, he had answered. "You need to come," a voice had said. Deep, grave, and barely audible through the static. Now. At first, James had thought it was a prank, maybe a wrong number. But there was something about the urgency in the voice that had pulled at him. He'd grabbed his jacket, left his apartment, and jumped into his car, wondering if he was making a mistake. Now, as the city passed by him in a blur, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a simple mistake. Something was happening, something bigger than him. He finally arrived at an old, abandoned building near the edge of town. The lights were off, and there was no sign of life. But the door was slightly ajar, as if waiting for him. James hesitated. What was he doing here? The voice on the phone had been clear. Come alone. So he did. Alone, he walked through the threshold and into the darkened hallway. The building creaked around him, as though it had been long forgotten. There were no sounds of life, just the steady rhythm of his footsteps echoing in the silence. But then he heard it. A door creaked open, and a figure stepped out from the shadows. "James," the voice said. He froze. It was an older man, his face weathered and tired. But there was something familiar about him, as though James had seen him before. Maybe in a dream, maybe in another lifetime. "You've come," the man said, his voice soft but knowing. I wasn't sure you would. Who are you? James asked, his voice shaky. The man smiled faintly. I'm the one who called you. You were always meant to come here, to this moment. James didn't understand, but he couldn't deny the pull of the situation. There was something magnetic about this place, this moment. He felt as though he had no choice but to follow the path that had led him here. Why me? James whispered. The man's smile deepened. Because you're the only one who can stop it. Stop what? The end of everything, the man said, his voice turning grim. You'll understand soon enough. The air around them grew colder. James's heart pounded in his chest, and every instinct told him to run. But he stood still, unable to move,